Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas.
Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal. Typically, we stream this program Friday mornings, but this is ILTA week. So this week we are here at ILTA in Las Vegas, doing short sessions twice a day. The format is a bit different. It's a 15-minute session instead of half an hour. But as always, this will be up afterwards on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live Cast. And if I sound a bit hoarse, it's because it's Tuesday of ILTA. What can we do? My guest this week is Doug Kaminski. Doug, I'm going to let you tell everybody where you are, who you do, and why it matters to anybody anyway. So let's have you go ahead and start.
Thanks, George. That was a great intro, and I understand the hoarseness because I think I'm kind of in the same spot as everyone else. So who am I? Doug Kaminski. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for Cobra Legal Services. Cobra's an odd little company, I like to say, because we're kind of mindfully built for legal operations and for their outside counsel. So it's a blend of eDiscovery and managed review, but also we review contracts, we help spec and implement technology, do data migrations, but the emphasis really on how do we optimize legal spend and make legal processes better.
And Cobra has been around for a while, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. We've been around about 14 years now, so born out of the last recession. By partners from large law firms that said, there are better ways to do these kind of things that we do day in and day out. So some of the more common tasks that fall into that vein, that's what we do and do well.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to hear from you several things, but first, let's talk about your top 1, 2, 3, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
eDiscovery priorities for the next 6 months or year or whatever time frame works for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is what are the priorities for eDiscovery? And at the risk of sounding trite, it's whatever our clients need. But there are certain things that have bubbled up. We found so over the next 6 to 12 months, there's a big emphasis on what I'll call fractional project management. With COVID.
So explain.
Yes. But,
I've heard of like a fractional CEO.
Correct.
Fractional project management?
Yeah, it's funny, but when we look at what is the industry asking for, what are practitioners asking for, what continues to come up time and again is we're in this kind of shoulder period where we can't necessarily staff up. I mean, let's face it, law firms most had, record profits last year, but they're still a little cagey in terms of do we staff up? Not knowing, are we going back? Is there going to be crazy variance, right? So, and they also are creating centers of excellence and pushing more towards centralized locations, cutting some other staff. Well, there's always been a certain amount of kind of shadow lit support that happened in law firms via legal secretaries and others. Now it's starting to flow into the right channels. And that, along with the courts opening up and the ability to not add FTEs, what we've seen is a tremendous drain on the bandwidth for a lot of lit support and project management teams at law firms, occasionally in corporations too, but more so in law firms. So many have come to us and said, hey, can we take some of your people for 1, 2, 3, 4 months?
Okay.
So, at the core of it, though we host platforms, though we do this kind of work, we're a people and expertise business. So we've got a tremendous staff of relativity and Reveal and other basically experts on this topic. Many of them are masters and experts. Most are attorneys as well. And so we will farm them out as clients need.
So they are in essence seconded to the firm or embedded in the firm.
That's a perfect way of describing it. The model of seconding to a firm, it's exactly right. So we we are talking to some firms that are working 90, 100 hours a week in their lit support staffs, and they're saying, we just need relief. And most providers won't do that because they consider it their stock and trade. They say, you host stuff with us, we'll give you RPMs. But as I said, the reality is, where is the value derived? What is it people are looking for? And if hosting and other things are commoditized, they really need the people more than anything, and what they can get in terms of just relief as well as kind of adding. So that's what fractional project management is probably.
And how is fractional project management working?
Quite well, actually. The word has been getting around. So many firms have said, I think you usually go through like an audition process. So we'll have some in-depth chats, and then they usually say, wow, this group really knows what they're talking about. We want to have another chat like this, even just to bounce ideas off you guys. And we really enjoyed because we get a lot of their peers. Our folks are always experienced, usually a minimum of 8 years. Many of them have been at law firms or corporations, some from service providers. So they've walked the same walk and talk. And so they are seen more as peers.
So I would think that one of the additional advantages for a law firm is that it gives them the ability to pull in for a targeted period of time people with a much greater breadth of experience than to be obtained from working only within one law firm.
Yeah, that's well said. We should have you write the marketing for it. No, it's exactly right. And that's what people are looking for. They realize that the days of just butts in seats and hiring up FTEs as you need them, usually when it reaches critical mass, right? And they're looking at things a little differently now. And that's one of the benefits of COVID is, can we do things remotely? Can we do it fractionally with an ALSP, with somebody else that has this expertise and hired as needed?
So fractional project managers, what other priorities?
Yeah, so that's I'd say the first one. The second would be with the, everybody talked about the plethora of data sources, and let's face it, saying the word teams in Slack should almost be like a drinking game, but we'd all be drunk by this point. So it's really helping our clients with those data challenges. So we acquired Digital Discovery just recently. A tremendous, thank you. Yeah, a tremendous forensics and collection company. And they've got a deep bench when it comes to data breach, to a lot of investigations, kind of the sexier part of EDiscovery, right? Those are the cooler things that we talk about.
Those are the cool kids.
Yeah, exactly. They are. They're really sharp. They're the cool kids, tremendously good reputation, and do great work. And so when we look at the span of services, how do we integrate these things in such a way to help clients with the same struggles they've always had, which is how do we minimize our data footprint overall to what I always call optimizing for the most expensive eyeballs, right? So it's not just iterations on what we've done in the past. Sometimes we take entirely different approaches to a thorny problem, like in some cases, data breach. One case we had, it was quite interesting. There was a few million records, and we could have thrown it into a review platform, and Reveal has some excellent tools to help mow through that. But the reality is we needed to do a quick triage. And what we had found was just using some common sense in the way we organized the information even prior to review, we were able to negate 75% of it. Now, what the benefit was is that the client was able to very quickly ascertain the risk, and they ended up not paying the ransomware. They said, we're not really exposed here, and the 25% that was still potentially exposed was minimal and not sensitive. So significantly reduced the cost of the review, significantly reduced their exposure, and they got to resolution faster. So
isn't that part of what you always want to achieve?
Exactly.
Yes.
Whether it's review, right, the just, speedy, inexpensive determination of an action, or in this case, data breach, where time frames are compressed, similar with second requests. We worked on a congressional hearing recently, same types of things. So how do we guide clients better is one of the priorities. Taking in mind, it's not just a data issue, and it's maybe not just a people issue. Sometimes it is just the way you look at that thorny problem and find new ways to resolve.
So just-in-time resources, specialized guidance.
Yes. Yeah.
How about a third need and priority?
I'd say the third priority for us is how do we, we've done extremely well in the last few years. We've grown almost 500%. landed on the Inc. 5000, and that's all cool. But you still got to keep saying to yourself, all right, so what?
You got to keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. What have you done for me lately? I say it to myself every day. So what have you done lately? And so as we continue to look at what are some of the problems that are out there that continue to bubble up? So we talked a bit about the discovery ones, but the rest is the use of AI for things like contracts, for other issues that are beyond that, because our suite of services is a little different. We do a lot of work with legal operations teams on optimizing legal spend, from the allocation of the resources to how do we realign resources and risk to all these. So how do we create a better offering and suite of services as things continue to bubble up with clients? And more importantly, being on the forefront. I don't like using the word disruptive or disruption, because honestly, it's about alignment. There's been a disconnect for a while. Right. So how do we find alignment? And some of it is using tools like Reveal, right? The acquisition of Brainspace and the acquisition of XLP, and the way that you fold it in together makes a lot of sense. So we continue to look for all of these tools that are out there, and how do we apply those to business problems that our clients have in such a way that it moves the needle. And it's not just smoke and mirrors. It's not just vaporware. It's not just something that actually sounds good, but doesn't produce these vaunted productivity gains or answers.
So let's talk smoke and mirrors. Let's talk vaporware. If you could, what your e-discovery platform would look like. And here are the ground rules.
Yes.
1, everything is possible.
Everything is possible.
2, no technical limitations. 3, no financial limitations. 4, think as broadly and widely as you want. If you want, suspend the laws of physics.
Yes.
Go for it. What would this look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if we're out to design the ideal tool, I think most people would just say, I want an all-in-one tool. But let's face it, we've been hearing that for so long.
Right.
I started in eDiscovery a good 18 years ago. And I was at Clearwell for a number of years, and we sold that to Symantec, and everybody's wanting an all-in-one. The reality is that as data sources continue to spiral, that continually changes. What is your all-in-one? So I don't honestly think it's ever truly possible, but we're suspending the laws of physics and everything else. What I would say is stop looking at this as a document and data problem and look at it more of a content issue, right? And how do we better classify and better understand data? And you and I talked about this ages ago. I started, Mary Mack taught me eDiscovery 18 years ago and introduced me to you and to Tom and to some other folks. And even back then I said, honestly, you corporations, if you did a better job of throwing data away that you didn't need, I would be out of a job.
Right.
I want to be worked out of a job. I mean, the reality is if we did have one ideal system, it would be one that could intelligently understand what the content is and what potential does it have downstream. So classes of data that can be better protected to minimize all the triaging we have to do of data perimeter security and all these other things, right? And throwing away the irrelevant stuff that so often we just keep applying our culling strategies and other things to start at the top of the funnel and whittle it down. Why are we even doing that, right? Why don't we have something that can tell us much more rapidly? You don't even need to look at this. And we're making strides there. And obviously AI will be part of that because it needs to learn. So I think it would be something that is at the source of the data or the content source of the data that can analyze content, help us understand much better what we actually need to do with this. So we do, once again, optimize for the most expensive eyeballs. There are so many attorneys that don't want to be technologists, right? And that we
almost all.
Yes, this kind of thrust into that role.
Understandably so.
Exactly, understandably so. That's where the stride should be made, is how do we do a better job of understanding what's in the data? Because the content is what's determinative. Forget about the sources, right? Many people would just dismiss ephemeral messaging because it's water cooler talk. But the reality is
It's content.
It's content. That's right. So content is what's determinative, and I think that's where we need to focus.
Once more is king.
Content is king.
Yes.
And understanding it, and understanding what it is and what impact it has, whether it's from an asset value situation, right? Look at the IGRM. We got the asset, right, and our duty to protect, right? And then deriving the value. That's what we need to optimize for. So my ideal platform would do that. It would be something it understands from a much earlier perspective. What is the potential for this data? The content of the data, not the source, not anything else, but also give us insights so we can do a better job protecting and do a better job learning and teaching people about, what truly is the value of this data and why should we treat it differently.
Very good. Well, Doug, thank you very much. My guest for this segment has been Doug Kaminski. And this has been eDiscovery Leaders Live, broadcasting from ILTA. Please join us when we, once again this afternoon, return. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, George. It was a pleasure.